I'm Sean Fennessey.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is the Big Picture, a conversation show about Thunderbolts.
Woo!
Mallory Rubin is here. Long-awaited return. When was the last time you were here? Complete unknown?
Dylan, yeah, I think
Complete
so.
unknown.
But
Okay.
the last time the three of us were together was Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Wow.
So
Is that the last time
I
we've potted together?
believe so.
Whoa,
Holy
that's the
shit.
summer of 2023? That's a long time ago.
Too long, I would say.
I think so. Well, you know, Mallory and I took you to task for some of your opinions, so it seems like you didn't want to
True.
revisit that.
We
What
did the same for
opinions?
his takes on Quantum Mania, which the three of us also shared together because Sean was
Oh.
very pro.
I was mid-pro.
Very pro.
I was like open to it. I guess Quantumania is more recent, right? Then Di-
no, I think Dial similar
I
time.
think they're in the
yeah.
same era.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is an elegant segue, though, because
Mhm.
Quantum Mania, which was
Quantum Mania was February of 2023.
a film that was more or less rejected despite being framed as a
Not by you.
significant
Mhm.
and important part of the Marvel story. I thought it was just fine, but most people didn't like it. Most people haven't liked Marvel movies in quite a while. Obviously, Mal, a lot of what you do on House of R is tracking the progress or lack thereof of Marvel storytelling.
Yeah.
It's been a rocky road last
Mhm.
couple of years. Thunderbolts comes to us
Yeah.
with, I think, modest anticipation, but a sort of buoyant optimism, I
Mhm.
would say. Does that seem accurate? At least I've been projecting that towards
yes,
you.
and
on
I
this
would
show.
say that the community at large seems optimistic for Thunderbolts and then downright ravenous for Fantastic Four, which is another Marvel sort of. What phase are we in now?
Well, this is the conclusion of Phase 5. Thunderbolts
Oh,
is
I
the
see.
last film of Phase 5,
And so-
and we will
but-
be heading into Phase 6. But we're in the multiverse saga.
Right, and we're at like things are changing, right? You know, we're on the
Indeed.
precipice, and these are two important films, both for Marvel's business propositions and also, as I gather, for the Marvel fandom and the story and the future of the many humans in the many multiverses.
Absolutely.
I had
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah,
had
you
it.
were-
Like,
Yeah.
Honestly, though,
You know,
she nailed it.
It was
I was
pretty
there,
good.
nailed it.
and then I was like,
And you
where
weren't
am I
making any
going?
faces or being weird, and then all of a sudden
one
you just your brain
multiverse and
stopped.
lots of
You were like,
universes
how-
inside of the
How
one
did I
multiverse.
find
But yeah,
myself here on this podcast talking so sincerely
I would
about
like
this?
to ask Amanda a question.
Okay.
How many MCU movies do you think there have been? What number was Thunderbolts?
Okay. 32?
Really close.
Pretty close.
36.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Wow.
It's a lot.
Okay.
We've been doing this together for a while.
I have
The
seen
shared experience.
almost all of them.
You've probably seen all of them.
No, I haven't seen the Doctor Strange movies. I don't know. I missed
What?
I missed the first one. I don't know what
you
happened.
would have so many takes on the sling ring.
And
You have got to
then-
watch.
And then I saw a preview for the second one.
Yeah.
And I learned that Rachel McAdams was in it, which was pretty exciting. But I was on leave for the second one.
Okay.
Because I think I saw the preview at Spider-Man
Mhm.
No Way Home. Was that the good one?
I think all the Spider-Man ones are
Well,
great.
it was the
but yes.
the
Yes. Yes.
the Spider-Man No Way Home,
multiverse.
which we
Yeah.
saw together. Remember?
Yeah, we also potted on that together.
Yeah.
One of my favorite big pick memories because Sean and I were honestly talking for quite a while about Matt Murdock, and
Yeah.
you said to us, "What the fuck is wrong with you? There are 3 Spider-Men in this movie."
You did bury that lead.
Well, we're just trying to make a podcast.
I'm sure, but I think I did. That was a sensation of a
Mhm.
movie. Made a lot of money.
Loved
we
it.
all three enjoyed it,
Loved
and
it.
I think what we liked about it was that all the Spider-Men were there together and having
Matt Murdock.
nostalgia. And then you guys were talking about some guy who's a lawyer.
Mhm.
He's a lawyer and a superhero who's
Okay.
actually in the news in
Daredevil.
2025 because Daredevil is back
Yeah.
on Disney Plus. And, this conversation may seem like a side road to Thunderbolts, but in fact, I think what it is like 10 years of friendship in Los Angeles going to see Marvel movies.
Exactly.
We've seen a lot of these movies
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
over the years. I've certainly gone through quite a journey with my fandom of Marvel and this kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
And I would love to love these movies.
Yeah.
That's really where my heart is. Even when they're absolutely terrible, I'm not happy that they're terrible,
No,
but I
of
think
course.
you got to call a spade a spade. And the last 5 or 6, I just don't think have been very strong. And I'm not going to get on this podcast and tell you that Thunderbolts is the best movie of the year because I don't think that it is. But it's in the right direction.
Mhm.
That was my take on it. So the movie is directed by Jake Schreier, who has not really directed anything quite like this. The most recent big project he was associated with was Beef, the award-winning series on
Fantastic.
Netflix, which is
Yeah.
a great show. It's written by Eric Pearson and Joanna Callow, who is also one of the co-showrunners of The Bear. It's cinematography by Andrew Draws Palermo. I'm saying these names because all of these names are not names you typically hear when you see a Marvel movie. This is something that
You're
Marvel,
doing the A24
I was
meme.
gonna say,
they did set us up for
leaned in,
this.
yeah.
They leaned into the
It was
fact that
smart.
the guy who edited this movie edited Minari. That's not something you might expect. I'm not saying that this movie is like that, but we'll get into it. In addition to that, the cast is full of some familiar faces, but also some, I guess, more respected names than you necessarily see at the front of some of these movies, in particular Florence Pugh and recent Academy Award nominee Sebastian Stan.
Mm-hmm.
Wyatt Russell's in this film, Olga Kurylenko, Lewis Pullman, Geraldine Viswanathan, David Harbour, Hannah John Kamen, and Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah.
Thunderbolts. Who are the Thunderbolts? Like, what is this crew relative to the canon that you know and understand better than anybody?
Yeah.
And who are they in these movies? Because they are a little bit different.
Yeah, I would say like that was one of my big questions heading into this actually was how pertinent would the comics canon be? Because in addition to, hey, look at all of these people associated with your favorite like Letterboxd Film Bro classics who are making this movie, it's going to be different, like come cinephiles and rejoice. It had an asterisk at the end of the title the entire time. And so there was, when are we doing spoilers?
Not yet.
Okay, I will like not get into that, but I will say there was like pretty rampant speculation the entire time about what that might signal, what that might mean. Is that an indication that this is like not necessarily the Baron Zemo forge? Like it was never going to be that at this point in the MCU. Though Zemo's like, he's out there, he's kicking.
Daniel Bruhl's character.
Oh.
Baron Zemo.
Where, from what film?
Captain America, the Winter Soldier?
Civil War.
Civil War.
And then more recently, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier television show.
Yes.
Oh.
Which is one of
They
the
threw
properties
Daniel Bruhl
that
some
has
TV
the...
work. Good for Daniel
You
Bruhl.
probably saw the clip of him dancing.
No, but that's okay.
You didn't see that series.
I'm
That's
with
also
you.
the origins of the Wyatt Russell character in this film.
Yeah,
US
I mean,
agent.
there are a lot of things that are important to have seen before this, but in some ways, I would say The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Black Widow are like the most important prior Marvel
And
MCU canon,
you've seen
which
one
is
of the two.
Yes, I have.
interesting. So what you need to know, honestly, in terms of the comics history, the group forges to fill the space that the Avengers have left, right? There are many different leaders and many different formations, as is often the case with the comics canon team up. I would say really the only thing you need to know, though, is what you head into the movie knowing and then very quickly have reinforced, which is this is like a ragtag group of rejects who have not found their place, either because it has actively been, they have been deprived of that fellowship with other people. Maybe they have actively lost somebody, like Yelena has lost Natasha. Yelena also rejected the Red Room and broke free of the Black Widow mind control. Everybody has their version of that. And we'll obviously talk about the characters more as we go. And so that's the question the film is based on, is like, can people who have no fellowship find it with each other? Can the thing they have in common be their loneliness?
Okay.
And the answer is yes, and I thought it was beautiful. I really liked the movie. It was fun. I had really high hopes for the movie, but I was really pleasantly surprised. I thought they pulled it off, and it was exactly what I wanted this kind of movie with this group of characters at this time in the MCU to be. I thought it was a real breath of fresh air, tonally. And I'm excited to see how these characters function in the wider multiversal saga moving forward.
Okay, so the exuberant superfan.
Yeah, loved it.
The long-time but increasingly cynical fan.
Yeah,
and
go.
the general skeptic.
But I have not been high on a lot of recent MCU movies, so that's part of why I'm so relieved.
Skeptic and also the ignorant participant in this.
So
willfully ignorant.
Mal loved it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yes.
What did you think?
I didn't dislike it. I think
that's progress.
Pretty good. That's pretty good. Honestly,
so I didn't.
I heard
dislike
you
it.
chuckle a few times.
Well, now, so that is one thing I would say. It took almost an hour. And I would say that the first 45 minutes felt very, very creaky in terms of exposition and the number of threads that they have to
setting
pull
the
together.
table for the story.
Yeah, and to their credit, I have not seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I did follow what was going on. They did, kind of through brute force or like brute exposition, make it clear to me. And another thing I'll say for this movie is that I often go into these films and I'm just like, I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what was happening when it started, and I have no idea what's happening when it finished. And
Right.
this was coherent. Like this explained to me who these people were, the stakes of the story, the powers of everyone, like beginning, middle, and end. Who am I rooting for? Are they going to figure it out together? Are they going to find chemistry? Which kind of rocky for the first 45 minutes, but then David Harbour shows up.
But in a way that's incorporated into the text of the story.
Totally.
Right?
And so it makes sense. I have to say, like, I thought it looked genuinely good.
Yeah.
Which, you know,
the void effect was awesome.
I wish, well, but also they just filmed sequences outside in real life. They used more practical effects. Like I have some notes for Florence Pugh's stunt double's wig, but like if that's it was tough, but like if that's the level of note I have, as opposed to why does this look like, you know, video game vomit for 60% of the movie, then that makes a huge difference. And I like, you know, I feel cringy giving that note given the A24 trailer, you know, because I'm like, oh, that's what they want me to say.
They set us up for that.
Yeah, it's annoying, but like it looks so much better. The storytelling is much clearer and more straightforward. Florence Pugh can act. So like suddenly she's crying
Cast
on the
is
street.
great.
Like she and David Harbour have a few scenes where I'm like, I don't know why you got to do this in a Marvel movie, but I'm also
real
not
movie
mad.
scene.
It's
They're actually
really, really good.
I totally
so
agree.
it's, I would say it's maybe not my flavor for the first hour, but it, you know, as everyone say, or any of these movies, your flavor, and like except for when the Spider-Mans point at each other or Andrew Garfield saves the day, like not really. So I think it's pretty good. It's way better than the last 15 Marvel movies I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, we're now 13 movies removed from Spider-Man: No Way Home, so that's a long time. It's been 5.5 years basically since that movie, and there have been some that I have liked. Like, it's interesting that Black Widow is relevant to this conversation because Black Widow, I think, is not that bad. And if we had seen Black Widow on a big screen,
I mean,
knowing what was coming,
no question,
you'd say like this movie reminds me of that movie in that movie was very competently made. It felt like it was a part of the history of Marvel in a clear way. It felt like it was shot in the real world. It had a dose of humor. It had some new characters that you were introduced to and got connected to. Incredibly strong performers, Rachel Weisz and Florence Pugh, and people who like
and David Harbour
overqualified for this kind of work, so to speak. So, but there's been a lot of bad stuff, and Brave New World is extremely flawed and messy. The thing is this movie isn't messy. No. You don't really feel the seams in the storytelling the way that you have in the last few years. So I'm more or less
very
with you.
Tidy.
I struggled with the first 45 minutes myself. I thought the humor was actually very weak and forced. And then weirdly, somehow in the middle of the movie, they kind of like, and maybe it is just David Harbour showed up.
It is. Like for me, it was when they're in the car and he's like, spoilers, I guess, but he's retelling a story about Yelena's childhood. And I didn't laugh at the story the first time. Yeah. But then when he told it again, I just started laughing.
The girl pooped.
And
it's very funny.
It was very funny. He's just very funny in these movies, you know?
He's the best.
But it does, like, the Wyatt Russell character kind of snaps in. There was, and I understand to Mallory, as Mallory said, they are supposed to be at odds and they're not supposed to click, but, you know, they're fighting and they're allergy to each other was not funny to me for a little while, and then Harbour shows up and they become a team, and then I chuckled from time to time.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page about that. I'm not sure how much further we can go before we start getting into spoilers.
I will say I think I was higher on the maybe like tonal vibe and just sensibility of the first stretch than you guys were, and I think some of that is assessing the energy among the cast in a vacuum, and some of it is just, again, that larger, like hearing what you're saying about how do we consider a Marvel movie inside of the larger tapestry of Marvel movies. And I think the Black Widow is a very different movie, but I think the comparisons you're drawing are really interesting because like that's the first movie of Phase 4, which means it's the first movie of this new era. Now, of course, Far From Home is technically after Endgame, right? There was another movie, but like the Infinity Saga ends, we move on to this new thing. And for the beginning of Phase 4, for much of Phase 4, we're in this era of like, we're filling in like the world. What's the blip? How are we passing the mantles? But that movie took place earlier in the timeline. Natasha was gone. And then we went backwards. And I think people are like, wait, but
it's
what's
like a
next?
retcon period piece.
What's next?
Yeah.
And now if you just rewatch that movie without being in that very kind of urgent, what is the future of the MCU after Endgame headspace, it's like, this is a pretty fun movie to watch.
Well, we might have even talked about it, how if they had just released that movie in 2016, it would have just been another one of those just solid B Marvel movies where you're like, I'm glad I went. It was good. on to the next one.
And like a lot of what I love about that movie is present here. I think the Yelena Alexei relationship is just genuinely magical. Like Florence Pugh and David Harbour are great together. One of my single favorite things in any Marvel movie ever, I swear, is when they sing American Pie together. Like it's honestly like beautiful and incredibly moving. But also Yelena is like a witty, but kind of like a little bit of a dickhead, a little bit of an asshole. You know, she's got that line for Natasha about like, you're a total poser. Why do you always do the pose? And then you see her do the pose and you see her do the pose in this movie. So I think I'm inclined, especially in Yelena's character, to like that energy. And like, she, I think, just works so well with everyone around her. I thought for like John Walker, easing him into the rhythm of zippy zinger trading and swapping was like a little bit tougher. And like, the question for me heading in was like, am I going to care about a character like Ghost returning? Okay, Taskmaster, they say, is in the movie, but is in basically no individual marketing material. Like, are we going to have any real Taskmaster? Should I care, etc.? So I was just like, oh, right away, the sequence with like, shit, I needed that face. You know, like this is pretty amusing. I'm entertained and I want to see how they work their way forward together.
Yeah, they're even that sequence, because I liked Black Widow, and since I don't care what happens after Avengers Endgame in the same way that you do, I just came to it and I was like, well, this is sort of like
I liked it at the time as well.
A kitschy,
fake
spy
Bond.
thriller, right? And starring people, and I also thought that Florence Pugh just absolutely
she's
stole
electric.
that movie from Scarlett Johansson, which is just kind of funny to watch. But even there, it's because she's playing in opposition to Scarlett Johansson, and until David Harbour shows up in this movie, she is kind of a loner, which is a major theme of the movie, as we will discuss. But she doesn't have anyone to bounce off of. And so that opening scene where she's just talking to herself, and the one-liners even fall a little flat because there's no other energy.
Yeah, I think that it takes a long time to bring these people together, because we know that a critical figure in the story, of course, is Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Yeah, you got to get the "duh" in there. She's a real stickler for it.
Who is a Contessa and also the director of the CIA.
Correct.
And she is undergoing an inquiry from the Senate about her activities as the director of the CIA. And this is what has led to her being forced to clean up all of the loose ends from her time running this shadowy organization.
Yeah.
And so that leads to all of these operatives that have been working for her being drawn together and with the intent of being killed. And this is the thing that obviously ultimately unites them. I think going forward in terms of the conversation, if you haven't seen Thunderbolts and you want to see Thunderbolts, we will be spoiling the movie Thunderbolts henceforth.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this is on the level of an Endgame in terms of like things that happen and the like dramatic consequences.
No.
So you definitely could listen to this conversation and not feel like your entire next 5 years of Marvel has been destroyed for you. But there is an introduction of a character that I'm curious about his significance long term. And there's an interesting sliding doors related to this character. So once they find themselves in the middle of this vault that they have been drawn into by Val, who's played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, we see Ghost is there. We see Taskmaster is there. We see Yelena is there.
Yeah.
We see
John
US
Walker,
Agent is there. They're all brought together and they've been all sort of assigned to kill one another.
Yeah.
And so we see this pretty cool, I thought, action set piece battle where we see them kind of like all using their powers, and Ghost in particular, who's like a character I have no relationship to whatsoever, just visually is very cool.
Yeah.
And I think the way that character's deployed is really neat. And then a guy like falls out of a crate, and it's Lewis Pullman, and he's wearing some hospital scrubs, and he's like, how did I get here? I don't even, where was this bunker located?
It's at the bottom of a, topographically, it was a little confusing how they present it, but it looks like the American West.
Yeah.
The American West, okay.
Right. And it's in a canyon that they describe as the bottom
This
of
is like
something
Val's
else, and I
Area
was like,
51, basically.
Exactly.
You know?
So
her private experiments.
Incredibly beautiful. Again, thank you.
It was lovely.
It was a real place.
Yeah.
They clearly shot, when they're driving in the desert, they're in a real
exactly.
place. Yes, I totally agree. No more green screen, no more fucking volume. Like, please stop making movies like that. Please, I'm begging you. Bob falls out. You know, I don't know how much you knew about the marketing. Like, I knew Bob was the Sentry.
Oh, yeah.
And
before he was recast, it was very apparent that Sentry was going to be in this movie.
yes, it was literally announced. It was
Who was it
originally
originally?
Stephen Yeun.
Oh, I remember that he did
Who
drop
would have been
out.
fantastic.
It puts
He
an
would have
interesting
been
flavor on this movie, because
fantastic,
he would have
think.
been so good, because he is so much turmoil as an actor that maybe I actually thought Lewis Pullman was quite good in this movie.
I agree. I thought he
but
was
he brings
great.
a different energy than Stephen Yeun. So anyway, it was announced that Stephen Yeun was going to play the Sentry, who's a very famous character, a complicated character. And that just got my engagement up,
Yeah.
introducing him into the movie. Because the whole time now I felt myself feeling like, okay, what are they going to do with him? What are they going to do with him? What are they going to do with him? Not everyone will have that feeling if you don't know who this character is or why they're necessarily important to the story.
Century with an S.
Yes.
I was hearing Century all movie.
How about when they
Okay.
kept showing the belt buckle with a giant S on it?
Well, I thought that was a G and a C. So, and I don't know
Totally
what the G
fair.
was for, but
Totally fair.
like, sorry, maybe they got to work on that logo some more.
It's a good note.
It is a good note.
I think he's golden, so I thought it was Golden Century.
It's a good note for the marketing department,
Yeah.
honestly.
The reason that character
Before they put the merch out.
really piqued my interest, aside from him just being a cool superhero character,
Yeah.
is that the director of this movie, Jake Schreier, is really good at complicated,
Yeah.
sad, depressive people. Like that's what
Right.
Robot and Frank and Paper Towns and Beef, like these are
Yes.
stories about people who are like basically deeply depressed and don't know how to confront their depression. And I assume that's why he was hired to
Mhm.
make this movie, so that when the actors are talking to each other, he can make those scenes work effectively.
Yeah.
And I pretty much from that point on, from the moment that they escape the vault,
Yeah.
I was pretty much in.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
pretty much along for the ride the whole way. It's revealed, I think, that the film had maybe even a little bit more depth than I was expecting thematically, and it does something that I'd not totally seen before. Is Sentry like a meaningful character to you?
Oh yeah. I was thrilled that Sentry was finally joining the MCU. I think if you polled a lot of MCU fans and said like which character it's just is like the decade and a half long absence of inexplicable to you at this point, Sentry would be high on a lot of lists. And I think in part because of what we see in the movie, which is you're getting two characters for the price of one, right? You're getting Robert Reynolds, you're getting Bobby, but you're getting the Sentry and you're getting the Void. You're getting a superhero and a supervillain in one person. And not only does that give you a lot of thematic richness to mine, the duality inside of us all, it gives you a lot to work with from a plot perspective inside of the movie. Now, I think one of the questions from the trailer, because the Void is very clearly present in the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it was less clear actually how much Sentry we were going to see.
There's a big set piece moment with
Yeah.
Sentry that I was like, this is a superhero movie. This is a good superhero
awesome.
movie.
Oh, when he's in the
Yeah.
costume and
yeah.
room,
And-
you
Of
know.
all the sins that Val commits, let's just get this out of the way now. And
Yeah.
she commits a lot. Her ledger is dripping and soaked with red, to borrow something that Yelena and Natasha have heard a lot over the years. Do you use people and then try to kill them? Yes. Do you conduct secret programs and experiments to make your own super weapon? Yes. You buy Avengers Tower, you buy Stark Tower, and then you make it the Watchtower for your heinous acts? No.
Why is that so problematic to you?
Because it's the home of the Avengers. When she's standing there at the bar, I'm like, this is where Tony Stark stood? Like, how dare
This
she?
offends you? I don't know. It's kind of natural.
No, it's great, right? I love it. It's like she is so obviously trying to fill this vacuum in the way that suits her best, and to simultaneously like paper over and rebrand this space that like people associate with something so sacred, both inside of the universe and then for us at home as viewers, I thought was like really smart.
Can I ask some real estate questions? So I
Please.
did recognize the building.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She mentions at some point that construction is only like 60% done because they shut it down. Was
They
that
just put that
renovation?
drywall
A lot
up,
of talk
she
about the
says.
drywall.
Yeah.
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 A lot of talk about the drywall.
That joke like fell flat for me because there were also a lot of armed
Much
guards.
like the drywall then fell flat onto
Right.
the citizens of New York.
Yes.
Yeah.
So was that like a renovation or was Avengers Tower?
A lot of destruction in New York, throughout the MCU.
Oh, right. So then
And
they
Nice
have
little
to
reference
rebuild.
to the Chitauri
Okay.
Yeah,
at the Val's
yeah.
little
A
presentation.
lot of Chitauri Easter eggs throughout the movie.
Don't know what
both,
that is.
Sure you
The
do.
alien
the
race that
invasion in
invade
Avengers.
in the film The
Why would I
Avengers.
remember the names of the aliens?
Chitauri,
You know?
it's a memorable name.
I agree.
It's one of the most successful
Yeah.
films of all time.
Sure.
In fact, you and I saw it on the same day.
I know.
And we hung out afterwards.
Yeah.
Remember that? It's part
Wow.
an origin story on the big picture.
The
Beautiful.
Avengers, not Endgame.
The Avengers.
Right.
Oh,
The Avengers.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, that was like 15
It was a long
years
time.
ago.
It was
Why would I
literally-
remember?
really
It
long
was
time.
literally
I didn't
15
remember that
years
there were
ago.
aliens. There's a kebab scene in there?
Shawarma.
Shawarma. Sure. Okay. Well, there you go. I remember that.
Close.
Yeah.
Okay.
What were we talking
Sentry, sorry. Yeah, we switched to real estate corner on you.
Yeah.
Sentry.
about? Well, Stark Tower is interesting because obviously this film in many ways is about the creation of a new super team that will play a significant role. In theory, I'm not actually sure if this is going to end up being a signature team in Marvel, and we could talk about that at the end of the pod.
Yeah.
But Valentina realizes at a certain point that she needs to have more control over the world. And one of the only ways to do that is to have a superhero of her own. And that there's this huge vacuum. She literally says this before Congress, and Wendell Pierce, who is a congressman, one of two significant former cast members of The Wire who appear in this film, in addition to Chris Bauer in a very thankless role as, what is his name? Holt?
Yeah, I believe it's Holt.
Holt's a military man.
But I'm prepped for lethal.
Who meets an absolutely grisly end as he crashes in a helicopter.
Well, does he? I guess we can talk about the Void's powers later.
Oh, okay. Good point.
Right.
See? Look who's paying attention now.
But then if you're restored and the vessel you were in had exploded.
Well, I put a pin in it.
We'll science corner is a coming. Science corner is a coming. Anyhow, she knows she needs to harness a superpower. She doesn't realize that she's harnessing an uncontrollable superpower by making the Sentry.
Yeah.
She also doesn't realize that she did
anything.
It. Yeah, it was a failed project.
Throughout the trash.
What do you think about her lack of attention to detail and reliance on Geraldine Viswanathan's character throughout this film?
I did feel like, I know that we girl bosses are supposed to outsource, we're supposed to delegate and let people support us.
I love to promote women. Great iconic moment in the movie.
Contestants really can have it all, including an assistant who does their job for them.
I did think that she was outsourcing like maybe a little too many kill switches.
High level work. Yeah.
And also they're just leaving a paper trail or a digital trail that I had some real questions about.
Yes. Elena was able to scoop up a lot of key documents with relative ease. I will say two things. One, Val not paying attention to the details to the point that she doesn't even realize her experiment, Project Sentry, has been successful is to me like that tracks perfectly, right? And is I think very much in keeping with the hubris that we see across other governing bodies through the long history of the MCU, S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise. People are
or in America.
Yeah, exactly. People are pursuing some sort of nefarious ends, the grip on power above all, and they don't really care how that happens, who it hurts, or what even it looks like. The thing I felt much more keenly was that Mel was pulled to the light out of a void of a different sort by just Bucky Barnes being hot. And I would like to say, who among us?
It was palpable. And God bless them for allowing some sexual tension into one of these movies. When they show up in front of the Avengers sign or whatever at the museum, they're just like, oh, we're doing this now. Great.
My God. The hair length, the beard, washing the vibranium arm in the dishwasher, the chili getting everywhere. Take the tank top off too while we're at it, It's
really the only thing they let him do.
So the note that I made about Sebastian Stan's performance in this film is that he's barely even trying, but blowing almost everybody else off the screen. Because somewhere along the way, Sebastian Stan just got the Quan. Like, I don't even know what happened here. Like, obviously, he had a great 2024. He was in 2 really interesting films, Academy Award nominated.
Yeah.
And some of it is just the erosion of star power throughout the MCU that he has risen above. But this is the second MCU movie in a row now where when he shows up, you're like, oh, it's James Dean.
Yeah.
Which it didn't used to feel that way when he showed up in films. He was always a fan favorite and he's great. He's been in a lot of really good movies. But this is a cut above. Obviously, he and Florence Pugh are on equal footing in terms of their star power and like what they bring to a movie. But I was impressed by how little he even has to do in this movie and how much he still is able to kind of like get your applause moments, get your like, whoa sequences. He gets
one that is very effective and very funny, but also definitely felt like edited in. Like, hey, we need like a Bucky moment.
You mean the driving sequence?
Yeah. I mean the Mad Max sequence, which is like, and some of it is like they're using that landscape, which like again, thank God. But you almost expect like the guy on the guitar to come out and be like,
the Doof Warrior.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
that
really
sick.
And it's cool, but I mean, it's important that he shows up at some point, but it's not really necessary other than they're like, I guess we got to do something with this guy.
So I have, I guess, a slightly different take on it, which is like, I thought this was actually quite deft and deliberate and a really smart deployment of a character who has become and a performer who has become one of the single greatest through lines in the entire MCU.
It's true.
Like, Bucky Barnes debuts in the first Avenger, which came out in 2011.
Yeah.
He has been in so many movies. He's been the co-star of a standalone television series. Like, he is one of the heartbeats of the story to this point, and people are deeply, deeply invested in him. Now, that could be true of a lot of characters in a lot of movies, but I would say, even though there's like I think, quickly forged and very sincere, deep and abiding affection for Yelena. I think people love Yelena. I think Red Guardian has a lot of fans. These are really new characters.
Yeah.
Like, Bucky is just a different thing from the rest of the characters who have been, Ghost, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, that movie's pretty old at this point.
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
U.S.
But
Agent's
like,
never been in any of the movies, right?
no, he debuted in Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well. And like, so did Val. Val was in Black Widow, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Black Widow were
Wakanda
similar
Forever
timelines,
as
and then
well.
Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
But like, again, those are all very recent. We're talking about the last few years. So
You're right. He's got the longest legacy.
yeah. And so he's not only like, he is suddenly the elder statesman.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like a wild thing for the guy who used to be the sidekick to Captain America. Like, it's and I think especially for a character where a lot of the connection that fans have to him, and of course his relationship with Steve, is like, I'm with you till the end of the line.
Mm-hmm.
That's like what Bucky represents in the MCU. So for him to feel a little bit apart and outside of the rest of the group, I think is intentional and actually necessary, because it's a meaningful thing for him to decide to do it again with different people.
Right. That's a good point. He's also an elected official and also
That part is still very weird
a
to me.
former Soviet asset.
He's a Hydra super soldier
yeah.
who is now in the House of Representatives, which, like, actually, I guess that tracks completely. But like,
That's a good point. Coming from the inside.
in Red Hulk, what was that movie actually?
It was not called Red Hulk.
What was
it was
called?
called Captain America: Brave New World.
Okay, great. He was campaigning, right? And
He
he
was.
took some
Had some
time from the
fundraisers to go
campaign
to.
trail, right?
Yeah.
To like give.
He did.
Yep.
Yeah.
In a desperate act of reshooting
Right,
by the Marvel
exactly.
Corporation
But so
to
I was just
wedge Bucky into the
and
film.
that was the best scene of
Of
I
course.
was just trying
Same
to-
example I'm
to
talking about.
track his political progress. So
Yes.
in the
Do you have opinions on his political platform?
well, I didn't know that he was. I've forgotten he was a super soldier.
Dem or
for,
Republican. I mean, he's representing Brooklyn, obviously.
Oh,
so
yeah.
presumably
Oh, Dem.
he's blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, not so sure.
It could.
Independent?
Red like Red Skull?
Okay.
No, come on. He's standing next to AOC, casting votes.
Okay, I hope so. That would be
That's
great.
actually an interesting question. If they would, of course, never be so bold as to reveal the political affiliations of any of their
man.
superheroes. Let's talk a little bit more about Florence Pugh.
Please.
This is a weird time for her to be becoming one of the centerpieces of the MCU, because the MCU has gotten a lot less cool. It's become a lot more clear in the public eye that it's maybe there's not as much approval for the like, well, I just got to do this to kind of elevate, my status and make movies that make a lot of money and make a lot of money myself. Like, the bloom is kind of off the rose on this methodology. She got involved in this 5 or 6 years ago, probably, when she signed on to do Black Widow. And she has been now, I think, wisely pivoted into one of the key forward-facing parts in this world. And she really carries this movie on her shoulders.
She's fantastic.
She's excellent. Yelena is a great character.
Yeah.
I think a lot of her scenes are very well written, and her, as you said, her and David Harbour have terrific chemistry, and they're very funny, and they're very touching. And honestly, there's like a girl dad moment in this movie where I was like, this is real? Like, this is a real, which
It's
is so
sweet.
stupid to say
No,
about
but that's
Thunderbolts,
very beautiful.
but it's
Yeah.
very effective.
Even just the fact that he has the soccer picture from their fake life in Ohio is like so sweet.
Yeah.
Because it was real to them, guys.
Yeah.
The bond.
And so it really plays to her strength of like, she's often a flinty young woman who's defiant and independent, but has this deep reservoir of pain and whatever she's pushing down. We see this, you've not seen the film We Live in Time, but I would say she is using a very similar skill set
Right.
in this movie that
interesting.
she uses
Okay.
in We Live in Time, which was a kind of a modest hit last fall for A24. It is a little bit hard to imagine 10 years of Yelena and Florence Pugh in the MCU now. I'm
Why?
not saying that's
In what way?
necessarily a bad thing, but when I look at every other project that she's ever done, it feels pretty far afield from what she's interested in.
You think it's hard to imagine that,
like her being
because
Robert
of her
Downey Jr. now?
being interested in it for that long? Or the character
Yeah.
making sense in the MCU for that long? Or all of the above?
We don't get a lot of like under 35 young women who are like, that's the
the
future of
one.
movies to me, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm not, and this movie is pretty good, as I said, but for her to be kind of dragooned into Yelena through phase 9 just it makes me a little queasy.
Interesting. I think so even, I'm going to assume you did not watch the Disney Plus television series Hawkeye.
No, Haley Steinfeld.
Correct.
Is also in that?
This is why I bring it up.
And listen, I guess I got to go back now because I'm buying in on Haley.
She's back. She should just be her character from Sinners in the MCU, though. That would be.
Some of that show was actually quite good. There's a great dog in it. His name's Lucky.
It was okay.
Lucky
I thought it was okay.
As usual, they lost it.
It was like
episode 5 of 6.
6 episodes too long, but yeah.
It was only 6 episodes, so that means you thought it should have been 0 episodes. But the reason I bring it up is because when Yelena shows up, spoilers for Hawkeye, midway through, she's there on an assignment from Val pursuing Clint, kind of like again, as Val tends to do with these assets, falsely led on a revenge tour. She's seeking to take people and like recycle them for her purposes. But the scenes between Yelena and Kate Bishop, the Haley Steinfeld character, the new Hawkeye, are incredible, electric. And one of the questions for MCU fans coming out of Hawkeye was, is this the beating heart of the young Avengers? And I think it's really interesting that Yelena has been pulled out of that. Clearly, Yelena is not going to the young Avengers. That's happening with Kamala Khan and Kate Bishop and a different set of characters. And Yelena is in the
Aren't
new Avengers.
Haley Steinfeld and Florence Pugh like the same age though? Like
that's why it's interesting. It's like I think some of it is about the character, right, and who the character makes sense with, maybe in some of these different permutations. But like, I don't know. That's obviously not going to be. It doesn't mean that Yelena won't appear in any Young Avengers properties, and who the fuck knows if they're even doing Young Avengers? I mean, they keep teasing it. Obviously, we got some tantalizing stingers, but being the star of Thunderbolts and then having the Thunderbolts rebranded as New Avengers with a Z, great stuff. And then having the post-credits be just a setup for Doomsday, which obviously, like, Yelena is going to be a meaningful part of.
Seems like she's going to be a really big character.
Is really notable.
It is. I'm mixed on it. It's not that she can't make other movies in the meantime. She certainly can. But this really dragged down Chris Evans' career for 10 years. And I liked him as Captain America. And I liked when he was in those movies. But I was like, you kind of just frittered away like a long part of your career. So it's cool that she's having this moment, and it's cool that I don't know if they realized that she should be a centerpiece of these movies at a certain point, and they repositioned her into this slot. But it does then take us away from some other Florence Pugh parts.
It was okay for ScarJo. She made it work.
She did.
And she still worked with interesting people and made good movies and had Oscar nominations. And, now she's just in a different giant franchise because everybody needs money.
She's hunting dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Are you excited about Rebirth?
Not as excited as CR is, but his passion is my passion. So I think I'll absorb some of it via osmosis,
I do want to shift back to The Void in a minute. But before we do that, can I just make a note? I don't really think Julia Louis-Dreyfus is good in these movies. And I think she's a little miscast as Val.
Tell us why. I think this is a genuinely hot take.
I mean, she looks like Valentina, but this is unkind, but she's a TV actor. And it feels like you're watching a TV show when you're watching her. It doesn't feel like you're watching a movie.
What do you mean?
Her comic timing.
Extremely rude to the Nicole Holliff Center film, Enough Said. So take it back.
I'm a huge fan of that film.
Yeah.
I'm also a fan of You Hurt My Feelings, which came out a couple of years ago. But I wouldn't describe Julie Louis-Dreyfus as a great film actor. I think she has a sensibility that is like very quippy and very quick that is all about like repartee. Now, that is obviously a component of Marvel, but this is a movie, I think, with a big dynamic emotional story in it. And she's a part of that story. And whenever she's participating in it, I feel like she's in the sitcom version of the movie. And a lot of the other actors are in the real version of the movie. And it kind of threw me off my game.
She's doing Veep. And I mean, it's hard. She's dressed beautifully, by the way. I liked the suits very much.
I got no beef with Julia Louis-Dreyfus at large as a longtime Seinfeld fan.
But, it is like professional woman, like professional ambitious woman playing ambition and all of these tropes like for laughs. And it's like different kind of laughs and slightly less sophisticated. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I thought that was more about the kind of tonal divisions of the movie because it's very quippy, and then it is also, about depression. So, and like recreates everyone's depression at for extended periods of time. So she's just in like the funny half. I think she does a good job at the funny half, but the mishmash doesn't totally add up.
I guess you could make the case that we do get this. So Bob's character has this ability when he makes physical contact with a character to draw them back to a traumatic moment in their life,
Yes.
to a critical moment in their life that informs a lot of the pain that they feel all the time. Almost every character in the movie gets to have a moment like this with Bob, where we see something critical to their life. She gets one of these moments.
Yeah.
And so we see something that is how we see that her father has been murdered when she was a young girl.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of context around maybe why she seeks to control power the way that she does.
Yeah.
But then you cut back to Julia Louis-Dreyfus and she's kind of like making a face and
Yeah.
darting out of the room the moment she has to deal with this.
But
And I'm like, they're not even giving us any opportunity to get invested in whatever this character is supposed to be about.
I responded to it the opposite way, which is like, I'm like, Val's not a character. That glimpse into her trauma didn't resonate with me because I don't think the movie is sincerely interested in informing us about her motivation. It's like she is where she is and she behaves the way she does. And it's
Why?
not a study in actually her path to that. It's a study in like the manifestation then of her intention. And so I think her being like a glib, myopic, a void of a different sort, somebody who is seeking to absorb and suck and subsume everybody into her orbit because the thing that she desires is control. I think the way that she's engaged in conversation and certainly the performance is like, this is how I deflect and how I make my way through the world, and I'm smarter than you and I see something more clearly than you, and like I'm going to make sure that you understand the only thing of value you provide to my life is this cup of coffee.
Mhm.
I really like that, and I think at least the projects that she's been in so far, maybe with the exception of Wakanda Forever, where while I was genuinely interested in the romantic history between JLD and
Martin Freeman.
Martin Freeman's Everett Ross, one of the just great reveals in the history of cinema. You're sort of like, wait, what is this doing in this movie? But when she comes in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and she's like, John Walker, you were Captain America for a minute and you were disgraced, and I'm gonna use your pain with a couple quick one-liners and then my own agenda. Like it works. And the fact that she's like using humor in that classic JLD way, I think allows you to understand how she moves through halls of power. So I've really liked the way that she's been used in the MCU. I think that if she were in like, I don't know, any number of other MCU properties, like it probably wouldn't make any sense. But the ones that she's been in so far, like it actually has worked. I mean, you could see her in like the Guardians movies. You could see her in a Deadpool movie. You could see her in Ragnarok.
I think it's because of her theoretical emotional importance to the movie. Like she is the agent of power, literally. She is
Right.
the true villain of the movie. And
I mean,
we don't really know why.
I'm okay with that. Like,
Okay.
as the you know,
I tend to think
finality of power and if anything, I don't need to know about her trauma, respectfully.
Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
the flashback of it being like,
Yeah.
well, that was upsetting. And I thought all of those flashbacks like were pretty restrained and effective. And her face recoils for a second. But like I didn't need to know anymore.
I think I'm
Right.
maybe not asking for like a 1 hour exploration of Val's pain. I think it's more just because of the performance. Like some actors can pull this off
Mhm.
without having to have that scene.
Mhm.
And I
What
again,
is
I don't want to
Thanos'
disparage
pain?
Thanos' pain.
Thanos' pain. Sorry, yeah. Sorry for giving it
Destruction of
your-
the home world.
Yeah,
transatlantic.
his planet has been
Yeah,
destroyed.
the pursuit
Oh.
of balance.
Okay.
The
Overpopulation
impartial
as an
balance.
anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so his home planet.
This kind of has OCD a little bit too.
Okay. But that's the inciting incident. Like his home planet blew up.
Well,
Did he
Titan.
blow it up?
do you recall the showdown where Peter gets very upset and then everything, when they're trying to take the gauntlet off, everything kind of goes to shit?
No. But that's okay.
I was going to bring up the setting and then where we see the
This is an
destruction, but
Infinity War.
it's not
Okay.
not
That's
relevant.
right before the snap.
Titan. Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So there we go.
You should revisit it. I don't think
Okay.
those movies are good.
They're great. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to Lewis Pullman.
Yeah.
So
He was great.
I agree.
you liked him.
Oh, yeah. I thought he was fantastic.
This is Bill Pullman's son. He went from
He
being
looks
someone I'd never heard
exactly
of.
like him.
Compliment.
He-
Yeah.
he does.
Yeah.
He's a good use case for like, here's what it was like in the 90s, where a guy like this could be for at least 6 years the most important person at
Well-
the movie. So like he was the president and he was marrying Sandra Bullock.
And
Like,
also like
Yeah.
Bill Pullman, so Lewis Pullman and then Jack Quaid, son of, is like and who does look like Dennis Quaid, but also looks so much like Meg Ryan.
Yeah.
And so all they're just the 90s are back, and the facial expressions and the emotions. And I do feel like some of his emotions and some of his acting looking so much like Bill Pullman definitely affected me, because I was thinking about Sleepless in Seattle or While You Were Sleeping or Independence Day, as he was being like, sometimes I have a hard time in Southeast Asia.
What it was like for our parents to watch Michael Douglas get insanely famous in the 70s and 80s, and having known Kirk Douglas before that.
Yeah.
I mean, but he looks exactly like him.
Yeah.
Like it is.
He has a different
the same
energy, though. I think.
Yes.
He has a different vibe,
but
especially
the middle
Bob.
part of his face.
I know.
It's uncanny.
I saw Bill Pullman in person
Progeny.
at a Gladiator 2 screening earlier this year, and it was thrilling for me.
Wow.
And it was like he is my childhood in many ways. He looked great. Very handsome fellow.
I find him
a big fan.
Quite dreamy.
I believe he owns a winery now.
Oh,
a vineyard.
God. That
Seems
sounds right.
Seems like he's doing it right. Anyway, his son is a really good actor, and it's hard to take parts like this and imbue them with any sense of emotionality. This is a complicated part. Bob was a drug addict and a lost person who found his way to Malaysia, looking to disconnect from the world, and finds himself the subject of this scientific test. And I guess he's injected with some sort of serum. Is that the idea?
Yes, exactly.
And it transforms him into an all-powerful person. He doesn't quite realize the extent of his powers. We know he's going to have them, but he has that very cool moment where he sort of explodes into the sky after drawing attention away from the other Thunderbolts in the first half of the film. Very quickly, I think maybe just like a little too quickly, he goes from being a guy trying to figure it out to the most powerful superhero in the universe. I don't know if you felt like that was a little bit of a leap there.
Yeah,
when
that
we
was
get to
fast.
the Sentry sequence. I
Just
guess
the
we're meant to
command of
believe
the
time
powers.
has passed or something.
You've already watched him,
so.
face off against like Val's entire army,
right?
And be shot like 80,000 times, and then like ascend, into the sky like he's so powerful.
I think the thing that felt fast was the control.
Yeah, right.
The mastery of all of his different abilities, because like shooting, the hail of bullets falling, helpfully removing the lower part of his.
Yeah, revealed his abs for you.
I did. I also clocked those, and I was like, "Oh, I see, Kaya Gerber."
Well placed bullets, very helpful. From like then, I shoot up and I shoot down and I crash and they collect me in a box. So holy shit, I can make like a glass of water heat up and explode, into I can with calm and confidence and complete poise handle every single one of you, and anything you might do was like a matter of a scene and a half.
Yeah, he was like the Otani of superheroes very quickly. I was like, we've never seen this before.
And there was time for some hair dye as well.
What'd you think of the blonde?
I thought they did a great job of talking about the hair in the movie.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked it.
What is the name of the lead villain in The Boys? He's giving that
Homelander.
energy. Homelander. There's a lot of Homelander.
He didn't drink any breast milk though.
Is that something Homelander does?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Not familiar.
Yes.
Not caught up on The Boys.
It is.
How's he sourcing it?
All sorts of ways.
Uh,
Fresh. From
Primarily?
the teat when he can.
Okay.
Also in a private store or refrigeration unit full of bottles. Any way he can get
so
it.
is he like? Well, what's the mechanism of stealing it? Like, is he stealing the supply? Is he attacking people? Like, does he have?
He had a number of different
dairy
providers
somewhere?
over the course of the 5 now seasons of The Boys.
I fell off, I think, after season 2.
Okay.
Although I like that show. I have
Good show.
nothing
But
bad
so
to say about it.
he's not just like sneaking into people's freezers at night and grabbing the.
No.
Okay,
No.
All
He
right.
is like a Superman level power, though. Like similar to the Sentry, where you're like, this is the most powerful person on this planet.
Yes.
But he's also an absolute demon, like a horrendous person.
Yes.
Okay.
Bad guy. Homelander. Bad guy.
Sentry realizes his incredible powers. We have this great fight sequence in the middle of the movie where
I enjoyed
all
that.
5 Thunderbolts get their asses handed
thought that was
to
very
them
good.
in a very
Yeah.
tight and tidy way.
Mhm.
And then it becomes clear that Bob realizes he's stronger than he knows, and Val realizes he's too powerful and too self-aware.
Yeah.
The kill switch is engaged by Mel after he nearly kills Val.
Yep.
He dies and
Mhm.
is reborn as the Void, the darkness that lives inside of Bob. So here's what I wrote down. Because this is the reason that this movie ultimately works for me. There's a big obvious metaphor at the center of the film that is also its core theme, that is also its villain.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Now, obviously, it's a comic book movie, and so the bounds of our imagination can go anywhere.
Mhm.
But using all 3 of those things in one package to tell your story at a time when people are more aware of and confronting their own general depression than ever before. This is just something that people talk about every day now.
Yeah.
And the entire character is oriented around this idea of not slipping into this feeling. I don't know if it's sophisticated, but it is deeper than I think a lot of what these movies are about, or at least can like thematically reach. Like, listening to you all the time, you have an amazing ability to locate what the story represents and what it's trying to do. I don't always agree necessarily with I'm not in agreement with how it gets to that place or if it gets to that place, but you are so good on theme. This was a rare case where I was like, the theme is very strong and clear and clearly communicated, and it didn't feel phony. And I'm so sick of trauma as the basis for so many horror movies. This was a rare case where I thought, I don't know if earned is the right word, but it worked.
It developed it.
Yeah.
And like, I agree with you. And as a person who didn't know anything about this character or the exposition, so had to have all of the pieces in place explained to me so that I could understand the central theme. But you get it. It is straightforward, but also not too heavy-handed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even they are doing like the villain's origin, you know, the villain's trauma, her origin story, but it's quick. And if like you don't really care about it, it's gone in 2 seconds.
Right.
So there's something about it just being so like dead on, where they're not trying to hide it in that many other things, because the void like just is depression.
Right.
Like that is the
Right.
that is the character. So they just go with it.
Yeah, it's
and
really
I think that's
not trying to make you think. It's like, this is what it is.
right.
Yeah.
And but they don't try to overcomplicate it.
Right.
And I think that is smart, and that makes it more effective.
Yeah, I think the movie's like very self-assured in what it's trying to examine and convey, you know? And so like, I think you guys are right that it is there in a clear and palpable way, but not then in a heavy-handed, alienating one, which is like actually quite a difficult balance to pull off. I think, again, a character like Valentina, part of the reason that she is in opposition to our heroes and our anti-heroes, whatever you want to call them, is not just because she's seeking to use them, but because she is uninterested, ultimately, in looking inward in a way that all of the other characters eventually work themselves to a place of being able to do. And crucially, of course, in a team-up movie, in a found family movie, helping each other do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, guys, the climax of the movie is literally a group hug. Honest, like, for real. Like, they all go and wrap their arms around Bob and
which
like
is a
pull
great
him back.
little
And it was,
inversion
I was
of
like,
them
wow.
climbing
Right,
up the
exactly.
tower.
Yeah, and there is
Backs to each other.
a version of this movie where that is like so corny and so like eye roll inducing, and it just wasn't. I was like, wow, this is actually like quite touching, and I'm invested in these people as individuals, but also now as a group, and that happened quite quickly. I mean, I think in this inside of the film, like, just not a lot of time passes, and you have to believe that bond could forge. I think it's helpful when some of the characters already have history with each other, like Bucky and John do, or like Yelena and Alexei do, because you can have that conversation like the one that Alexei and Yelena have, and you know there's more like depth of shared experience and awareness. But ultimately, I thought the pairing that crackled the most and that kind of you have to opt into and give a shit about is Yelena and Bob.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the movie hinges on, is you caring that they are going to decide to care more about each other than the things around them.
It only works, I think, because of that conversation between Alexei and Yelena outside after they've been defeated by the Sentry.
Yeah.
And she's talking about this sense of like aloneness and purposelessness. And I think a feeling many people can relate to, which is sort of like, some days are good, a lot of days are bad. And when a day is bad,
Totally.
what is the point of everything? And that's the same thing that Bob is dealing with. And when Alexei talks to her about it, makes her feel more whole.
Like the light, you're dim, you're brighter.
And here's the little girl I knew. I was like, damn, this is good writing.
Yeah, it is.
Why you want to be a goalie?
Yeah.
They base it the goalie part was great.
Yeah.
She did the Star-Lord we're losers.
Right.
Like, people who have lost things, you know,
Right.
speech from Guardians. That's like such a tried and true recipe, but to do it in a way that still felt fresh here, or maybe less fresh and more just like specific to these characters, I thought was impressive. Quick shout out while we're talking about that sequence on the street for the passerby, the woman who just like, it's like, what's going on with these people? She walked by. That was hysterical.
That is what would happen in New York.
Yeah.
If, you know.
Yeah.
I love that. That was a great little touch. I thought that was really, really funny. Did you guys feel that the actual maze of trauma traps was like, did you want more? I thought the Bucky coming in and being like, well, yeah, you know, I've had a calm, chill, cool, normal life. So like, it was fine for me. It was great.
Yeah.
And we don't need to see Bucky's memories because we know what they are. But did you wish we saw more?
I think I'm glad we didn't spend too much time in that because this is the most Nolan-inflected MCU movie I can think of. And that was very Inception, that final sequence. And as you guys know, I have some issues with Inception. I think it was just psychological enough to not have to worry about the logic of it. And if I start spending a little bit too much time thinking about like what they did or how Alexei found his way to where, you know what I mean? Like the mechanics of it were kind of iffy, but it was done well enough that I understood what they were trying to do, which is basically get us to that lab so that Bob and Yelena could meet and she could make him whole again. She could say, it's not your fault, basically.
Right. I think I was so relieved that the climactic, you know, like final battle, dream, whatever sequence in a Marvel movie was once like somewhat grounded in the real world and, you know, filmed on sets at least as opposed to on green screens and was, you know, recognizable things. And like, I'll give them credit, you know, like one of the memories was like an abusive dad and a bad childhood and and then one was
meth chicken,
which was like, they weren't too corny. They were like recognizable and they didn't dwell on them. So, but just the actual execution of this being like not CGI slop for like, you know, and a bunch of ants was a huge relief.
She loves the ants and she brings them up a lot.
Mentioned them multiple times.
It's not even the first time this week that she has mentioned the ants.
No idea that it's all happening in the quantum realm, but she knows that there were ants.
I did until I saw this movie think that the void was the quantum realm.
You know what? We worked through it together. Something you're saying right now makes me think of another thing that I think the movie does very well. Let's use Yelena's trip into the void as an example. You actually could understand everything important about that character if you never saw Black Widow.
Agreed.
And I think the MCU, when it really struggles with that specifically, is how much homework did somebody have to do before they... Now, I'm like a completionist. I want people to watch all of this, but I don't think they should be expected to have to watch all of it. And if you didn't see Black Widow and you didn't see Hawkeye, you would understand that Yelena was turned into a child assassin and forced to commit atrocities against other people.
It's because you've got a lot of characters who don't know each other, so they have to introduce each other. At a certain point, Red Guardian is sitting in the passenger seat of a car and he's talking to Bucky and he's like, you and I are the same. We're both super soldiers. I got the knockoff Soviet serum. Like he's literally explaining his origin story, but in a humorous way that moves quickly. And it's not this overweening mythology. It is just, I'm a guy, here's what I do. I'm a lady, here's what I do.
You also crucially learn not to drink what's in the big gulp. Yeah. Also important.
It's pretty gross.
Yes.
Are we sure that's what it was?
What do you think it is? Jizz?
It's
a big that was a big cup.
Mallory, just true. This is not the rewatchables for Jesus Christ.
You asked the question.
I did. So
that was my second guess too. So
what did you think we were gonna say?
Let's talk about the Void. The character. I thought this might be a good time for Science Corner. I assume you have some questions.
I have been waiting all week.
That's the Science Corner music. So, but I hope we play the real one.
Welcome to Amanda Dobbins' Science Corner.
So, is he disappearing people, or is he... What happens to their physical matter is a question that I would have once you get voided. Because we see, and I really liked the execution in the movie, which was, it was computer, but instead of it just things, it kind of got like stamped out.
Yes,
like
shadowed out.
Yeah, shadowed out. And that was something that you could do like fairly like easily and elegantly within the spectrum of the like the visuals.
And I think also visually it fit the metaphor.
Yeah,
which is like the encroaching darkness of life.
Yeah,
blots you out.
Right.
Yes.
And then they also, when the Sentry becomes the Void and like shows up over the city of New York, it's like he is just Dark Superman, which is what you're supposed to understand. And even I, a superhero dummy got like it was effectively visually communicated to me.
What happens if Superman was super depressed?
Right. Well, which like isn't he though? Because don't you think being Superman? Yeah. right?
We're gonna find out July 11th.
Great,
I
can't
can't
wait.
wait. There's a dog in
That was
a
a
dog in that
sarcastic
movie.
can't wait and a
I was
sincere can't wait
Wait,
simultaneously.
Mallory-
Dog in
Mallory-
that movie, not a dog in this movie.
Mallory-
Where was
Alpha
Watchdog?
and the
Mallory.
Omega
Where was
of my
Watchdog?
podcasting life right
Mallory.
here. I love it.
Mallory in Vegas.
Yeah.
James Gunn
Yes.
talked for, I am not kidding, 20 minutes
About the dog?
his dog
Oh yeah.
and what his dog did, including eating an $8,000 laptop, which he thought would be a relatable anecdote.
yeah.
And then
I think it is.
how this dog inspired the other dog
Yes,
that's in the
Crypto.
movie.
Crypto. Yeah.
I was wearing heels and
Uh-huh.
I had gone to the bathroom and I had to run back because I didn't want to miss Superman because I know everyone cares about it.
Yeah.
And so I was just like standing, waiting for him to stop talking about his dog, and my feet started hurt. And it was interminable, Mallory.
I
was
think it sounds great.
interminable.
I'm not sure if you were aware how much of James Gunn's Instagram content is about his cat, but I find it riveting
Okay.
to follow.
Well,
I believe the hashtag he uses is Emily Monster or something like that for the
Okay.
cat, who is named Emily and I believe behaves monstrously.
okay. Anyway, the void turns things black.
Mhm.
And so when he's the void, he has like Bob or Lewis Pullman like out like silhouette,
Yes,
right? You
yes.
know, he is
Yeah.
Bob Pullman shaped,
Mhm.
but he's the Bob Pullman.
Lewis Pullman.
Lewis Pullman,
Yeah,
Bob.
Bob Pullman is his grandfather.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Bob's also his Top Gun Maverick character, so
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
pretty stressful for me
Yeah.
and exciting. But he is okay. So the void is Bob shaped,
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like sitting with Carl Sagan when you get into one of these sequences. It's just amazing.
but when he did, it's fine, I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep going.
Yep.
He's
Yeah. Like James Gunn, keep going.
Just don't stop.
Just keep going.
he disappears everyone, including the little girl, which was the one like gasp.
Genuine gas.
Yeah,
Love that.
everyone,
Screening.
and I was
Gas.
like,
yeah.
Fabulous scene.
But so these people are just gone. What was once matter is no longer matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And it is Snap reminiscent.
Very-
and there
yeah,
is
of course,
darkness
very much
there,
so.
but the darkness does not take the shape of the people. It's not even really 3-dimensional, I would say.
Right.
Um,
It's like a brushstroke through your life.
right. And so then when the void goes away,
Yeah.
they're
They're
all
back.
returned to their places. But Mallory asks an important point about Holt on the helicopter
Yeah.
because he's there and then he gets voided and the
Right.
helicopter keeps flying.
Now, I think the MCU invites us to ask this question because this is, I don't think we can overstate how much time people have spent talking about it, asking about it, and then the MCU answering it with what happened when you, after the snap, if you were part of the blip and you came back, well, what if someone had moved into your apartment? Or what if the thing that you were sitting in or standing in
What
wasn't
if
there
you're
anymore?
having sex?
This is why.
You know?
Yeah.
This
No.
is why.
This is not
What
pseudoscience corner.
She's the
This
real
is
one.
Science corner.
Is this, well, what is the
Real one.
canonical answer to that?
Well, if the person you were fucking, if Thanos had also snapped that person, you would both go back to the same moment.
Okay,
Could
but
be great.
Be a little jarring.
I mean, sure.
but also it's like
not as jarring as it
but-
would be
but
if
it's
the
like-
person you were
Can-
fucking
can you-
had
is
and
the-
someone
but
else
are you
moved
are
into
you
your
going back to
bed.
the same moment in time? Because like, what if you're like
But
in a public
I have an
place
important
or,
question.
Present
you know?
day.
But does the erection hold?
Well, so this is part of what they've.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't answered that, but like,
Okay. Right.
Kevin Feige, if
Forget
you're
it.
watching, if I was snapped mid-coitus
yeah,
and I was gone for how many years were they gone?
5.
5
Yeah.
years. And I returned.
yeah.
Would my erection hold? I challenge you, Kevin Feige.
Well,
I said
so,
just
well,
a
and so
challenge.
this
Jack,
is also
can you just clip Sean saying "Would my erection hold" and make sure we have that for Instagram and TikTok? Thanks. But there was a lot of explanation about how Hulk, when he was bringing people back, like had an incredible amount of control over. So I think part of what you'd have to confront is that Bruce Banner was like thinking about your dick.
Could be worse, I guess. I don't know. Worst things I've
wait,
heard.
why?
Because he's like, should Sean come back like at full mast?
Oh, because
A lot of
he's
calculations
in
to do
charge
there.
of all
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
He's largely responsible for bringing us all back.
oh, he
Yeah,
was, and
yeah.
so he
Would
could
you prefer to have
decide.
been snapped or exist inside of a world where there was a snap?
No.
Definitely snap.
Yeah, of
1,000%.
course.
You
That's
wanna-
an easy
Oh,
one. Are you
yeah,
wanna
yeah,
be
kidding?
yeah, yeah.
You want to spend 5 years?
I mean, I guess
Though-
the answer
If you get to share a peanut butter sandwich with Steve Rogers and Natasha and talk about your grief, talk about how much you miss the Mets,
Yeah, sure.
which happened.
As we know, Joe Russo did
it's
that
tough,
once upon
right?
a time.
Because, what happens to the kids? You know, that's like the real, like,
Yeah.
I mean,
if my family was snapped, I would want to be snapped.
Right,
If my family was
exactly.
not snapped,
Snapped.
we could hang out, figure it out.
But the world is broken.
but yeah.
Yeah. What if you got snapped out mid-pod?
Okay.
And I was like, do I keep going? Do I finish
But
with
so
my thoughts?
We didn't go back to, so you get voided.
Yeah.
Which I do like pretty much every episode at some point, you know? It's like you start talking about chicken jockey and I'm just like, fuck.
And I'm
Can
like,
we
oh,
add those
yeah.
effects in, Jeff?
yeah. How do we get that shadow
Yeah.
effect in? Can we can we call ILM and just get you shadowed out mid-monologue?
You know how I wanted a buzzer?
Okay.
Like anytime things go really bad with you, I'll just hit the buzzer and then I void out. And then I can come back once you stop your bullshit. Okay, so you get voided.
Yeah.
And then you come back.
Yeah.
But do you return to the is it snap rules or is
Who are you asking?
I mean, that
this
kid-
is science
the
corner.
kid was like just there on the sidewalk.
yeah.
You know, so I guess there's no helicopter to go back into because that was actually destroyed. So does he just go into the middle of the sky and then fall?
I mean, I guess we have to hope so.
Now,
from
it didn't
basic
get very
motivation.
far. Like, we cover Manhattan. We blanket Manhattan.
Mhm.
That's a lot of people. But this isn't like half of the universe, like with
Right.
Thanos.
Right.
So it's a little bit more controlled.
It's like 1,000 people. And I guess it's like ultimately 1 million people when the whole city goes black. But
I mean, isn't it like 8 million?
Right. But like, where does that
Manhattan.
matter go?
Mhm.
You know, is another important question.
where
Into
does
the
it go?
void.
Where do we think?
Into
Well,
the void.
but the void.
I mean, Marvel is just a collection of various different dimensions and pocket universes at the end of the day,
Well put.
you know? So part of the journey of this one was moving into your
But the
own
void is
memory and then each other's.
Is the void
Your pain is
a
their pain.
villain or
Yes.
another dimension?
Well,
Why not both?
Well, I'm asking the questions here.
yeah. I mean, the void as a character, as a person, is part of Bob's essence, and also is bringing people into these trauma prisons. You know,
Okay.
and then our characters on their journey to found family moved through their own individual pain into each other's pain, because that was the message of the movie. That only together could they pull themselves out of that. Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Do you think the kid who took a shit in the middle of the field, I mean, that was Ohio, so she didn't enter the void, but if she had, what would her trauma vision have been? Would it have been when she had diarrhea in the middle of a soccer game?
Well,
Or-
see, that's the thing. Was it an accident?
Yeah, I
Or,
think
like,
so.
it
don't
Do you
make
thought
it-
she intentionally took a shit?
They
like
make
in
it sound that
protest?
way. Well, I don't know.
Oh,
about
like just like
protest.
drop trowel and was like, fuck this, we haven't won a game. I'm
Yeah, I
taking
mean,
a
like,
shit
we're-
in the middle
like
of the
we're
field.
closer to potty training, you
Yeah.
know, but it's just like
I'll say,
when you gotta poop, you gotta
boy.
poop.
Oh, I see. I thought this was like, I got the sense that this was like, you know, a pregame chili dog gone awry in the middle of the match. No?
I haven't given it a lot of thought.
But I think also like the way that they do the joke, I did think there was like a dropping trowel aspect
Mhm, right.
in
Interesting.
instead of an accident,
Mhm.
you know? Which
Interesting.
and if you're getting if
Mhm.
you're dropping trowel, then there's intentionality.
Mm. Yeah,
Most, you know,
right.
as we've learned from the toddlers in our lives.
Let's circle us back to Valentina's press conference at the end of the film.
That was great. When she walked, she just come right through here.
They walk through the
That was
curtain,
good.
the
I
makeshift
need to let
curtain.
you guys know that. So
Good
I
stuff.
Googled Valentina's watch, you know, because I
Oh
had
yeah,
some
you were.
questions.
This was your number
So she was
one.
wearing a Cartier
question.
Panther, but I was like, I haven't really seen it
Okay.
in rose gold that often.
Mhm.
It obviously is available, but now I have it up, and like Cartier has been just like the AI chatbots have been messaging me for 30 minutes, being like, "Would you like to buy this $40,000 watch?"
How
No.
many have you bought during
Yeah.
the recording of this podcast? Valentina very deftly introduces these characters as the new Avengers at the end of this movie. And
Yeah.
then there's a great moment when Yelena steps up and whispers in her ear, "We own you now," which is what I whisper to Amanda after every episode. And, you know, this crew has taken the place seemingly of the Avengers, but I feel like actually of Guardians of the Galaxy. Like my take on this is that they are like still
No question.
kind of the second or third team, but they're a really likable team. Yes, hands raised.
At some point, there was
Why'd you raise
speculation.
your hand? We're on a podcast.
You have a
What are doing?
microphone.
I didn't want you to get too far away from the naming and the reveal because there was
Yes.
a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
Am
Right, the
I
asterisk.
am I
Yes.
misremembering that the speculation was that they would be the Dark Avengers?
Well, I picked that up from you guys.
That was-
from
that
you and
was-
Joe.
okay. So
That was definitely out
all right.
there. But
So
I think
I
New
was-
Avengers was also very
I was
popular
mad
theory.
because
Okay.
I thought it was a Dark Avengers lock, and I was like, New Avengers.
Mhm.
That seems lame. That's like New Coke.
I think there is a little bit of truth to that,
Okay.
and that is
Yeah.
revealed once we get into the stingers. The first
That's why I
mid-credit
think
stinger.
it works.
We'll see how they handle it in the
Yeah.
future. One of the challenges I think of this movie is that it is very delicately on this tightrope between arch post-Whedon quippery and sincere, at times even thoughtful
Yeah.
drama. And I'm not sure what these other movies that are coming are going to be, and that's a very complicated thing, whether or not they're going to be able to meet that. And the
Yeah.
New Avengers post-credit stinger, which is actually like a real stinger of consequence. That's the other thing, is like I just feel like every stinger for the last 5 years has just not been about or meant anything to where the story is going.
Yeah.
This one actually does. It literally is connecting to the next film.
Yes.
It skips ahead 14 months.
Yeah.
We learn via Yelena complaining that Sam Wilson has trademarked the name Avengers.
Great stuff. Yeah.
And so they need to find a way to counteract this trademark infringement that they are engaged in, even though they are working out of Stark Tower and that they are ostensibly the real Avengers. And then they get like some sort of signal
Mhm.
that there's a ship, an
Yeah.
extra dimensional ship entering their atmosphere.
Fantastic Four.
We see the Fantastic Four rocket ship.
Mhm.
Do you care about this?
I did that the whole drive home, and Adam was like, please stop. I was like, not until July 25th.
It set us up quite nicely for the next 2.5 months.
It felt very, brand integrated
Yeah.
in a way. They also we saw this movie in IMAX, which
Mhm.
was great, and they had a special IMAX countdown that was a Fantastic Four IMAX countdown.
I had a minute where I was like, are we about to see like a special preview of Fantastic Four, which was not what happened. But
And
that would have been great.
It was a
You're
little
suspicious.
yeah. It was like a lot of synergy and like PowerPointy,
Mm-hmm.
brand activation to me.
I did appreciate that it was not, here's a character you may or may not meet in the next 12 years. It was like, this is the next movie.
Right.
So it actually, just from a timeline perspective, I was like, all right, 14 months, that's the time when
Mhm.
the Fantastic Four, in whatever universe they're in, when they find their way to our universe or the universe of this movie, that's when it's going to be. So it was like not nothing.
I thought the mid credits with the Wheaties box at the grocery store with Alexi was just very charming and funny, and I love him. And I just think David Harbour should be in everything. That's pretty much my
Yeah.
take.
He's really your type.
Oh my fastball down the
It's-
middle.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Hopper in Stranger Things, I think, is like one of like the sexiest characters
Yeah.
in the history
Your
of
husband
television.
resembles
he
David
does.
Harbour.
The bigger
you
the
know?
belly, the
Yeah.
better. I just love him. The melding of a few things that are of consequence in the post credits. One, Alexi coming out in like basically an F1 racing suit with the Z. Like I got around the copyright by putting a Z at the end of Avengers, and also just a little touch of all of the sponsors on this, like an Xbox. This is very funny. We learned something important, which is like Bob is powered down.
Right.
That is, I think, a crucial, and again, to your point, very like, not in a bad way, but you understand the formula of the MCU. They have to explain that a character who has been clearly established as unbelievably powerful, when Doom comes into the mix, will not be using those powers, right? So that will be a part of the story, is like,
Are we
how do we
sure?
power Sentry up? I mean, of course.
That he won't be using those powers?
No, but that'll be part of it, is like, how do we power him up? We need
Right.
you, bud.
Right.
We need you to face Doom.
No, it's just a great idea for the most powerful hero to also be the most powerful villain.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's,
So that I thought was great. And then like bringing the, showing us the Fantastic Four ship, wonderful. I think the timeline point you make is interesting. Like anecdotally, I think a thing I have heard, even amid the Fantastic Four excitement from a lot of people who are superhero movie fans, is like, well, we know they got to make it into the other continuity, and we know we're doing Doomsday, we know we're doing Secret Wars. So like, does it take anything away from Fantastic Four first steps to just assume that they're exiting at the end? I don't really feel that way about it, but I wonder if I do wonder if actually anyone will bump on that aspect of the stinger. To me, it was just like euphoria, and I think a much better example of how to give us more detailed specificity and like clarity about a thing we know, which is like all of these continuities are melding, incursions are coming, we know what we're headed toward. The stinger in Brave New World, which was the leader being like multiverse, as you know, I thought was just actively like insulting. It's like we're 2 phases into the multiverse saga. Like, yeah. This was really fun. It was an exciting end note for the movie. It's an exciting way into the next one. And it's much more like in keeping actually with showing us Thor's hammer before Thor. It's like this is actually the next thing and also then the bigger thing. It's not only like a little wink to the next individual story, but also the larger team up to come. So I thought that was great.
Yeah. And it's one more reason why I was like, this is kind of a 2013 Marvel movie, which was a time when I was totally at peace with 2.3 of them coming out per year and enjoying them sometimes, but very rarely being angered by them. So as I said, 13 movies since Spider-Man Far From Home and frankly, since COVID.
Yeah.
This is the second best one or the best one? Maybe the third best one? Not a Guardians 3 fan over here.
I love No Way Home and Guardians 3.
Those would be the two that I think are...
No Way Home is, I think, better, in my opinion.
It has higher highs.
Yeah.
As a movie on the whole, I think Thunderbolts is more consistent, especially through the final hour, but the excitement of No Way Home is kind of unmatched.
I mean, incredible. Those are the top 3 for me in phases 4 and 5. I'll probably have to see Thunderbolts a second time before setting my order there. I really love No Way Home and I really love Guardians 3. I mean, the rocket stuff in Guardians 3, I could cry right now thinking about it. I loved it. It was great.
Did you cry right in Amanda's face while you...
I mean, I'm glad that he's okay. I don't believe in animal cruelty. So that's
brave take.
Twist.
You know?
Wow.
Brave take.
Interesting.
Didn't want to hear James Gunn talk about his dog, but draws the line at active animal cruelty.
Yeah, basically, you guys, you do your thing.
Yeah.
And I'll do mine.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
My somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but also not question in the title of this episode is it too late? That the feeling that I mentioned of the bloom being off the rose, that these movies are now only for super fans, that the normal movie fan who likes to go to blockbusters, but who has lost a sense of the continuity, hasn't watched the TV shows, movie fans not going back 2, 3, 4 times to see these movies. Is it too late? Can this be completely revived and taken us back to a place that more looks like 2014, 15, 16? What do you think?
I don't think so, but I don't think that. Well, I'm sure Disney shareholders won't be like pleased with like the new adjustment, but I think it can get to a new medium ground where the people who are fans of this, which is like really sizable because that's the other thing, an entire generation of kids, like, you know, including your sister Sean, like grew up being obsessed with these movies, learned to go to the movies because of these movies. I think movies like non-Marvel movies are now experiencing the downstream effect of like kids being trained to go at least for a big event movie. So they'll keep going, and that's a sizable amount of people. I don't know if it's going to be the most important thing culturally, like in the same way with respect that like House of Dragon, which has like tons of viewers and is like a really big deal, it's not really at Game of Thrones level, just like in terms of cultural import, but like it's doing great.
Right.
And everybody but me watches it. And, you know,
I think that's a very good comparison.
I think that that's a good outcome for basically everyone except for, you know, capitalism and the corporate interests involved in this.
But it's a smaller piece of the pie for Disney. Right. Yeah.
I think the comp ultimately to like people liking this, it doing well, and most crucially of all, people being like characters I didn't think I gave a shit about, I've come to care about. Both in a way that will lead me to the theater to see it and then to invest in what they do moving forward. The comps are much more like Guardians or Ant-Man or honestly even like something like Ragnarok, though Thor was very established by that point, than the Spider-Man movies or obviously any of the Avengers movies. It's just Thunderbolts was never going to be that, despite being the Hammer film at the end of a phase, and despite being a big team-up movie. It's just like that's not the tier that this film's playing in. So to your core question, the test for that is still, I think, this isn't the test for that. I think that if Thunderbolts generates enthusiasm, that's just a win. The test is going to be Fantastic Four. The test is going to be Doomsday and Secret Wars. And of course, the test ultimately
X-Men.
Is X-Men. For is it sustainable beyond this?
But see, to me, X-Men, it won't get screwed up. I think that they still have a chance to, even if they fuck up the Avengers Doomsday
So
movies.
the X-Men will come again after the
Probably
Avengers.
at the end of Secret Wars would be my guess.
Right, because they had
I think that'll just be
the
like
chairs.
the focus of the next phase. But I mean, we've got a lot of X-Men
chairs,
presence
yeah.
already,
Yeah,
obviously, at
chairs.
this point. But yes.
I think we'll
correct,
probably
the chairs.
see all of the Fox X-Men
Yeah.
blipped out in some way in Doomsday, and whoever some of the new X-Men will be in Secret Wars would be my guess. But I'm going to be like 50 years old when that movie comes out, and I'm still going to be like, I want to know who the new X-Men are. Which characters did they choose? What
course.
era? Like I care. Like I'm just invested.
Same.
Chris and I have talked about this. Like we're getting old, and we're still like X-Men is still the only thing that matters ultimately. So, and Kevin Feige knows that.
Yeah.
And he knows that he can prey upon that, and also the fact that when you're 9 and you meet the X-Men for the first time, you're like, this is fucking cool,
magic.
man. This is great stuff. So even if the next 3 or 4 years are not ultimately that successful, this is a good sign. It
For
is
sure.
a smaller movie. It's tracking for $70 million right now. I would say that's an under
Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting.
suggestion.
Yeah.
If to me, it feels more like 85, 95, maybe even 100,
Yeah.
which would be a big success.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think if it underperforms 70, flashing red light.
Yeah, but this should have such strong word of mouth, right?
I think we'll have
The
good, not
reviews are
great.
going to be good.
We're in a different time. with
Don't
word
you
of
think?
mouth.
I feel like
Mhm.
even just my anecdotal word of mouth today.
Positive.
Yeah, but like,
My critic friends are like, this
Mixed.
movie's good.
yeah, but like, it's not bad.
Yeah, certainly
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not a disaster.
Right.
And even parts of it were
Positive.
acceptable.
Yeah.
The other thing that we would not have been counting on a few months ago, but that has obviously happened, is you've got the 2 biggest movies of the year are in theaters right now. So people are
Revenge
more
of the
likely to be
Sith?
in theaters. Well, the 3 biggest movies of the year are in theaters.
Thank
right
you.
now. You must be. Are you just high on the hog right now with that?
I mean, as you know, it's one of the most important movies in my life. As you
And you
also,
but you didn't go.
I couldn't go last week, and I was honestly despondent. But as I told you and Chris last night, and have mentioned on Ringer Pods before, it is the movie. Titanic is second, just to restore our bond before I say the thing I'm going to say next. It is the movie I have seen in theaters more than any other movie in my entire life.
How many times?
Can we ever trust our own memory? Who knows? My recollection is that I saw Revenge of the Sith 7 times in movie theaters
Like at its initial
when it came
release.
out. Yeah,
Same movie theater or different movie theaters?
different theaters.
Okay.
Different theaters, but I fucking couldn't get enough. Mustafar could not get enough, and I still can't.
I rewatched it this week. I don't know if there's time.
You are the chosen one.
I love that final sequence.
It's great.
So much of it is so bad. I mean,
it's a Star
anytime
Wars
Hayden
prequel, of
Christensen and
course.
Natalie Portman are in a scene together, it is abominable.
Yeah.
It is one of some of the worst.
I'll
writing
invite
of
you
all
to
time.
revisit Clones.
That's worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Attack of the Clones. That stuff is also bad. And yet, there's some fights that I really enjoy.
Sure. Prequel kids, you know?
It's a really good part in The Accountant 2 where Ben Affleck's character is playing with the lightsaber.
Was listening to
Oh,
Chris
we
and Andy
forgot
talk about
about
this
that.
driving in. I was listening to
just
Chris and
forgot
Andy
about it.
driving in
Oh,
today
they were
talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were talking about Star Wars Starfighter and like how that's actually kind of an inspired name for a movie. And Chris was like, they should just call one Star Wars Lightsaber. Or actually, Andy said that. And then Chris was like, I would go. And then they talked about The Accountant.
Do you
Yeah.
think Starfighter is a good title?
No.
It's the word star is already
I
in
agree.
Star Wars.
This is like a show I really love is Rings of Power, as you know, but the Lord of the Rings of Power is too many repeating words for me.
We
Yeah.
learned at the feet of great journalists and editors that like titling
So
is
it's Star
critical.
Wars : Starfighter?
Yes.
Who's the Starfighter?
Ryan Gosling?
Gosling.
Oh, that movie is
He's
going
just
to
going to
be
be
Star Wars.
He's just going to be in
Starfighter?
space.
Starfighter.
He's going to be in space for the next few years
I
because he's
thought it-
also doing Project Hail Mary. Wonderful.
Yes.
Oh my
I-
God.
which is I'm
I-
thrilled.
I
love
just
that
I
book.
can't tell you
love that book.
how
You were-
excited I
You're
was.
gonna like Project
No,
Hail
I
Mary.
know. But do you
Yeah.
like they cold opened with it after, and it was
fucking wait.
I'd had several cocktails, and then suddenly there was Ryan Gosling, and I was just like,
I sent him so many texts about it, and you had to actually at one point say to me, "This movie doesn't come out for 2 years." Like the
We
implication
were a little
was,
mystified.
please
when
stop
they,
texting.
Yeah, it's January 2026. 2027. Right.
It
no,
is?
No, January
No.
2026.
26.
26.
Yeah.
Is
But where
it
we were-
January or summer? I think it's
I
January.
I would have
Let's
said
find
it
out
was
right
like
now.
March,
Let's see,
but
Project Hail Mary date.
Project Hail Mary movie. This is great podcasting. When we
March.
just start Googling March 20. Yeah,
March.
I was right. Huh.
1 year.
Yeah.
1 year away.
Okay.
I can't fucking wait.
It was unusual in the presentation at CinemaCon to open your presentation with a movie that's
And
not
they
coming
had,
out
they
for a
had
year.
several movies. This is Amazon that don't come out till next year, and then one movie that we all thought was totally made up about Hugh Jackman and sheep.
Oh, exciting.
You can imagine what happens in that movie. He solves a crime. What did you think happened? What did you think I meant?
No, I answered your big gulp question. I won't be making the same mistake again.
Any closing thoughts on Thunderbolts? You liked it?
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like,
it's refreshing to not be mad about a Marvel movie.
yeah, I care about the MCU deeply, and I love comic book movies, and I love the characters, and I love the story, and I'm so invested in this connected universe at this point in my life. But like, the thing I love most about it is sharing it with my friends, genuinely, not to be too corny about it. So it's like, it is actually exciting to have a Marvel movie that people are like not actively dreading discussing with each other. That's really just a wonderful thing.
6 months ago, I was like, I know I want Mal to be on the Thunderbolts episode, and it worked out just as I envisioned. I was like, let's not have an angry, hand-wringing, like, oh, this again. Like, I don't, I'm so sick of doing those pods, even though they got to do it when the movie isn't good.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
It
feel
felt
good?
nice to go home and be asked how the movie was and be like, not bad, which, and I say that about Marvel movies and also just like about our movie.
Not
here.
bad. And here's a link to a watch I would like for Christmas this year.
No, I'm a tank girl. I can't do, listen. Yeah. As I said, I thought it was a little too on trend for that character. That's okay. I liked the suit.
We know Val is very presentational,
It was a rough Q1. For movies and for life.
Fully come out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like
we got a good Marvel movie.
You and I were
Sinners.
sitting there in Vegas on
Great
April
stuff.
1st, just being like, we're struggling.
I was distraught.
I feel
I was distraught.
uplifted.
I was like, what happened to my beautiful movies? I was like, this sucks. And now I feel good. I don't know if I feel great, but I feel good.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, Mel, thank you. Where can we find you?
Hey, check out House of R. We're doing deep dives right now on two of the best television shows that exist.
Okay.
The Last of Us and Andor.
Mm.
We're covering them at the same
Gotta
time,
catch up
and
on
that's
Andor.
a thrill. Well, they're airing 3 episodes a week,
I know,
so
it's
you
a
are
big
rapidly
burden.
behind.
I know.
As of tonight, you will be 6 hours behind.
That's fucked
It's
up.
their hour
But
long?
They're an hour long.
Were
But
they shorter
they're great.
last season?
They were a little bit short. There were
I
some more
know.
episodes last year that were in the
I gotta finish
40s.
the last season, but I can't because I gotta watch 45 Pound Newman movies.
Cannot recommend it highly enough.
I love
Great
the first
television
season.
show.
I really liked what I
Great.
saw, and then I had big pick work to do, and then Zach went ahead,
Okay.
and so now I'm just like, really,
gonna
it's fine.
to move
It's
it up
fine.
your list. I'm gonna send you a link to a video, the title of which is 1 hour of Mon Mothma dancing.
Okay,
I'm gonna send that to you. It will spoil something,
I'll watch it,
But it will
I'm
also-
open to it. Tony Gilroy for life,
spark your enthusiasm. Yeah, Gilroy, what a time to be the watch.
Thank you for being you.
Thanks for being
Thanks
you.
for being on the pod. Thanks to Jack Sanders for being him, the producer of this episode. Thanks to Amanda for all of your wonderful insights.
Science Corner was great today. It was.
We will be back next week on the show. What are we doing? Oh my gosh.
35 over 35.
35 over 35.
I love that's one of my favorite episodes of the year.
Oh,
We have
thank you.
not
One of my
done a
favorites.
movie star ranking
Yeah.
for people older than 35 in 2 years. So the National Research Group has done whatever the fuck they do and given us yet another
Charles
bit
Holmes
of data.
and I also did this. We did
Did you?
we did a summer movie star preview on Jam
Oh,
Session.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, not a lot of movie stars in the firmament, but that's okay.
Not ideal. Nevertheless, we will be doing it here on Tuesday. We'll see you then.